How good you are at practicing and problem solving will greatly affect how quickly you get good at playing the violin. Welcome to your 5th violin lesson. So in this lesson, I'm simply going to talk about how to practice. It is so important that you know how to practice because you're going to be doing this all the time. So there's 4 points I want to cover in this video. The first is creating a practice routine. Second is keeping yourself accountable. Third is deciding what to practice. Fourth is what to do during your practice. So let's get into it. So the first point of creating a practice routine. It doesn't really matter what your practice routine is. It can be every day of the week, every other day of the week. It could be 30 minutes, 1 hour. The important thing is that you decide on how much you want to practice and when, and then commit to it. The reason for doing this is to help you to build discipline with practicing violin. You'd be wondering, why do I need discipline to do what I love doing? I just want to learn the violin so much. I guarantee you, even maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months, maybe a year later, you're going to get tired of learning the violin. It's going to get frustrating because practicing is frustrating. But having a practice routine will help you overcome some of those challenges. To kind of share about my experience with creating a practice routine, when I was a beginner, I used to just practice 30 minutes a day, maybe every other day. There were times when I became a teenager, I started not enjoying practicing. So what I ended up doing is practicing only 30 minutes a week. I practiced the 30 minutes before I went to see my violin teacher so I don't completely embarrass myself during the lesson. In high school, I spent about an hour a day or maybe every other day practicing violin. So in college, when I was a violin performance major, I used to practice about 3 to 4 hours a day in the practice rooms. The point is that create a plan, a routine that you can stick to and do your best to keep it. And here's a pro tip. It's better to practice in small chunks frequently than it is to practice a very long time in one sitting. All right, so moving along, keeping yourself accountable. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but what I have is some suggestions on keeping yourself accountable. Like I said earlier, there's going to be a time when you don't want to practice and slowly you start dropping the ball. So to keep yourself motivated, I have a few suggestions for you. One is learn to play violin with some friends. I say it's a lot more fun learning something together than it is alone. Second is join a community orchestra. So, okay, you're probably asking yourself, wait, I'm not even good enough to play on my own, let alone join an orchestra. But the reason why I bring that up is to put it on your radar. Maybe that's a goal that you can work towards. I guarantee playing in an orchestra will be an experience that you'll never forget. My third recommendation for keeping yourself accountable is to hire a violin teacher and make it into a regular thing. Growing up, I used to get violin lessons every week, and I can honestly tell you that at times, that was sometimes the only motivating factor of why I kept practicing. Because I had a teacher, I was constantly improving and getting better at playing the violin. So the fourth way of keeping yourself accountable is to regularly perform in front of an audience. So that could be your friends, that could be your family. Something I used to do is play at senior living homes. They're the best type of audience because they're just happy to see you. All right, next, decide on what to practice. So as a beginner, I know that even deciding what to practice is a challenge in itself, but I would recommend you to think about your goals. Why do you want to learn to play the violin? Did you want to learn how to play a specific song? Is violin a hobby that you've always wanted to pick up, but you've never had the time to learn until now? Well, regardless of what your goals are, it's never a bad idea to practice something to help you improve the basics and foundations of playing violin. What I mean by basics and foundations is improving your intonation, things to improve your left hand technique, which is your fingers here, or your right hand technique, which is your bowing arm. I know that's very vague, but if I were to give you something very specific, what I would recommend that you do is work on 1 or 2 songs, work on a couple of scales, and work on an etude. An etude is a song that was created to help practice a specific technique. So I had a lot of teachers in the past, but unsurprisingly, they all had a very unique approach in teaching me how to play violin. So one teacher always had me working on 2 pieces, a bunch of scales and a bunch of etudes all at the same time. Another teacher only had me work on like 1 or 2 pieces at a time and then would teach me techniques as it became necessary to learn them. And then in college, I had to actually pick my own pieces and songs and bring them to my professor. And basically the entire time he would just critique my playing. But whatever the case is, the point is that to think about why you want to learn the violin, pick a path that makes sense for that goal. If you want to learn songs, then you should practice how to play songs. If you want to If you want to improve your technique, you should practice etudes to help you work on those techniques. If you want to just be good at everything, then you have to practice everything. All right, what to do during your practice? Well, I can tell you what you shouldn't do. What you shouldn't do is just playing your favorite song over and over and over again without seeing any improvement. It's not about the hours that you put in, it's about what you did during those hours. So I want to share 3 simple steps on how to practice. So the first step you want to do is when you play a passage or your scale or an etude, first thing is you want to identify your problems. Say you're practicing a piece or a song and then something about it just doesn't seem right to you. What you want to do at that point is to stop and think, like, what's wrong with it and why is it wrong? After you've identified the problem and why it's a problem, the second thing is you want to fix it. But finding the solution might not be that easy. You might be like, why does it sound so weird? I can recommend a couple ways you can find why it's wrong. You can Google it, or you can ask someone who has more experience than you to check your playing. So after you've found the solution to the problem, what you want to do is reproduce the solution 10 more times in a row. To actually get better at playing violin, you're going to have to do a lot of repetition. So one example of how this might play out is through intonation. So say you're playing your favorite song, but then something seems off. We've identified it's too flat. So what you want to do next time when you play that note, you want to aim for a little higher. Say you did it and then you nailed it. You're like, oh yeah, it's in tune. But now the next step is to do it 10 more times in a row. It takes a while, but you finally get 10 times in a row. Congratulations. You've started building muscle memory. So that means the next time you play that, you will automatically start playing the right notes. This is a continual process that you'll always have to keep doing. You might nail it one day, but then after the next day, you might not be able to get that note for some reason. That's why you want to keep adding repetition and repetition so that your fingers learn what it feels like to play the right note each time. So the nice thing about having a violin teacher is that they can point out whenever you're making those mistakes. So because sometimes you don't even know that you're playing something wrong. So if you're practicing on your own, you're going to have to be vigilant and very aware of what you're doing to fix these problems quickly. Be aware of how you're playing and continually challenge yourself and look out for opportunities to grow. Hopefully that was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.